Advent as a season can be a little bit confusing if we don't look at it carefully, because there's a lot that goes on in this very brief 4 weeks. And we actually go through time backwards, if you will. While it is 4 weeks of preparation for Christmas, it's not merely that. That's certainly a part of it. Actually, today we look at the end of time. As we hear in the gospel reading, Jesus talking about when he returns in glory and all the dead are raised and we all stand in judgment before him. And he reminds us in the gospel reading today to remain vigilant and watch at all times. And I think it's good that we start Advent with this to keep our mind on the big picture, what's happening down the line. So often, I think we can get caught up in the everyday things that happen from one day to the other, our trivial concerns, that we forget that everything we're here about is trying to go to heaven, so that when our life is over on this earth, our souls will be brought into the glory of God's kingdom. And so we think about that today. Then the next 2 Sundays, we look at how the Lord comes to us in grace every day of our lives. As we're working out that salvation, how he comes to help us out with it. And then finally, we end Advent with our immediate preparation for Christmas, remembering that the Lord came among us to suffer and die, to make us, and rise from the dead, to make our salvation possible. So we kind of look at it backwards, if you will, and end with our Christmas celebration. And the season of Advent coming before Christmas, especially in our culture, also can get lost because culturally speaking, it's already Christmas time, even though we're just beginning Advent today, and decorations are going up. People have done a lot of Christmas shopping and all that. And every year at this time, while there's a lot of people feel like children again as preparing for Christmas, there's always a few that are Grinches, and it just seems like they always get annoyed at everything. A couple of my brother priests, I would always argue with them about that. It just seems every year they're miserable during Advent, waiting for Christmas to be over so that they can get what's the word I'm looking for? Have enough of all of this stuff that has nothing to do with Christ at Christmas time. They just see all the commercialism and they complain about it, and they say, oh, it's all just become so commercial, blah, 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 etc. Well, yeah, there is a lot of commercialism around Christmas, and I don't like it any more than anyone else does. But you know what? Commercialism is part of our fallen human nature. It's there in the world. If somebody had known what was happening that first Christmas, they would have set up a little souvenir stand selling memorial keychains that said, I was there when Jesus was born. I know it would have happened. And you know what? If we were there, we'd have bought them too. It's nothing. If we're trying to fight commercialism completely, well, we're trying to fight something that we're never going to be able to get rid of. And if we only look at that and forget all the beautiful things about our preparation for Christmas, and once Christmas comes and the beauty of that season, well, we'll be missing out on so much. I think what's important is to make sure that the commercialism doesn't get the best of us, that it doesn't consume us, every pun intended, that we don't get consumed with the whole idea of everything else around Christmas time. And people, I hear them frequently complaining about, everybody's talking about, Rudolph and Santa Claus and Frosty the Snowman and all that stuff, and not Jesus. Well, it's not the presence of all those other things that causes trouble. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is not the Antichrist. I can guarantee you that. It is not the presence of Rudolph. It's when those things take over, and they are what our Christmas is about, and we forget about Christ. If we put Christ at the heart of it all the other things that are part of our culture and our customs take on their proper role, and they can be very enriching, and we can enjoy them as well, because we know Christ is at the heart of everything we do, and these are extras. And they haven't taken over Christ. So, as the Knights of Columbus are always reminding us, keep Christ in Christmas. Well, we put Christ in the middle of everything, we'll be fine. And by the way, they're selling magnets again, the car magnets for $5 each next door. Keep Christ in Christmas. So all we have to do is make sure that everything during this season, during our Advent and then our Christmas, centers on Christ, and everything will be fine. So, a couple of things, if I may suggest, that will help us do that. When we decorate our homes, I'm sure we have all sorts of lovely things there. 2 things I think every home should always have. 1, an Advent wreath, just like our own, that we will bless shortly and light the first candle. And you can make one in a variety of sizes and things. You can buy them pre-made or make your own. And what we always did growing up is we would light it during our grace before meals. And you light the appropriate candles for the corresponding Sunday and say grace, and even just say, "Come, Lord Jesus," which is our Advent motto. And we've already marked Advent so that we've not forgotten Advent and jumped right into Christmas and forgotten the season that we are just beginning today. So that's one thing we can do. And there's even, you can Google Catholic Advent prayers, and there's all sorts of different ones that we can use, whatever you might like. So first, make sure you always have an Advent wreath. And secondly, a nativity set. Obviously, when we get close to Christmas, our set will be up here. And you can buy one, again, in a variety of sizes and styles to fit your budget. And put it in a place of prominence in the house. You maybe would put it on a table or on a mantle. Some people would put it under the Christmas tree. Some place to make it the focal point of our decorations, to realize that all the rest of it is centering around this. Advent Christmas is about the birth of Christ before all the rest of it. And a custom that many people have is to, when you set up everything, leave out the Christ child. And then when you come back from Christmas Mass, you place the Christ child in the manger. And that even helps during Advent time, that we're saying, well, we're getting ready for Christmas, but we're still waiting. We're waiting for the Lord Jesus to be born. And so that's a wonderful way that we can help remember to put Christ in the middle of it. A second thing that I would recommend is with the Christmas cards that we send out to people. I get a lot of cards every year from many people, and many of them have very beautiful scenes on them. Beautiful winterscapes with deer in the woods and snow, or a nice fireplace, with all sorts of the stockings hanging and all that stuff, or Currier and Ives scenes that look like something of people in Victorian dress and everything. Very beautiful. But if you look at them carefully, we realize they have everything to do with winter, but nothing to do with the birth of Christ. And sometimes people would say, well, what's the difference? I said, well, imagine it this way. Suppose you have family who live somewhere in the southern hemisphere, in Argentina or Australia. And you get a card from them, and you open, oh, here's my card from my cousin so-and-so. And you open it up, and on the cover is a picture of people at the beach. And they're all in their bathing suits, throwing a beach ball around, or maybe dolphins jumping in the waves. And inside it says, keep cool at Christmas. You might look at it and say, what the heck does this beach scene have to do with Christmas? It's summer? You're reminding me of something. What are you rubbing it in, that we're freezing here, that it's winter? But for them, Christmas is coming at the beginning of summertime. So that's the meteorological season that they're in. So we send them a card that has winter in it, and they're saying, winter, it's 95 degrees out, and you're sending me pictures of snow? So instead of sending a card that has pictures of wintertime, send a card that has something to do with the birth of Christ. Whether it's a nativity scene, the Madonna and Child, a Bible and candles, or the dove with peace on earth. Something that the person receives it knows this is about Christ. And that's a wonderful way, especially to bring it to people who are not faithful to the Lord and do not worship regularly. And somebody once said to me, well, Father, I understand that, but I have a lot of people in my family that I send cards to that they don't go to church and they're not very religious, and I don't want to offend them. Offend them by mentioning Jesus to them? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? And if that's the case, they may go through this entire Christmas time and never once think of Christ. And maybe the only mention of it they'll get is your Christmas card. And they might just look at it and say, oh yeah, that's nice, and throw it in the pile with the others. But maybe, just maybe, something in that picture might spark something in their heart, touch them, and they say, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to get back to God. Especially if you say a prayer for the person while you're writing out the card, saying, Lord, let this touch his or her heart. It may seem like a long shot, but a deer in the snow is not going to do that. But certainly a picture of Christ will. And make sure you take the time to get the religious Christmas stamps to put on them when you mail them. So keep Christ in our greeting cards. And then in the greetings that we give to each other that we use. We've so often got caught up in a lot of the commercialist language and the lingo that's been used, and we grab it without even realizing it. So avoiding things such as season's greetings. And say, well, that's nice. What season? Winter? Shopping season? Duck season? Wabbit season? What season are we talking about? If we mean Merry Christmas, say Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Well, that's nice. What holiday? 4th of July, Columbus Day, St. Patrick's Day, Armistice Day? What holiday are we celebrating? If you mean Christmas, then say Merry Christmas. Now, granted, I can understand people who, you got somebody working in a department store and in a religiously diverse area as ours, and people coming in, and they may not know what holiday, if any, they they practice or celebrate, and so somebody says to them, have a nice holiday. Okay, fine, fair enough there. But when people come up to me after Mass and say, oh, Father, happy holidays, or they'll take the time to write it out in a Christmas card to me, happy holidays. What's the matter? You don't know which holiday I celebrate? Or you think I'm going to be offended if you mention Jesus to me? Trust me, I will not be offended if you mention Christ to me. So, sometimes when people will do that, they'll say, Father, have a nice holiday. I'll say, thank you. Which one? And they say, oh, well, Christmas. Good. Well, then say Merry Christmas, not have a nice holiday. And then the one that really gets me angry, Xmas. Oh, how awful. Crossing Christ right out of Christmas. Do you realize that? If you write Xmas, you have taken Christ and crossed him right out. And I frequently get arguments from brother priests over that, saying, oh, no, you're wrong about that. That's not the X. It's the Greek letter chi, the first letter of Christos in Greek. And it was an ancient symbol used in the catacombs during the days of persecution because Christians couldn't mention Christ publicly. So, we're remembering, the Christians and the persecutions back then. So that's a pious thing to do. And it's not crossing Christ out of it. What a load of hogwash. First of all, how many people call it Chemus? And secondly, how many people do you think write Xmas because they're saying, oh, I'm thinking about the Christians and their times in Rome during the persecutions and everything, and I'm remembering the freedom that I now have that they didn't have then. No, it's like nobody is doing it that way. It's quicker, and that's the only reason they do that. And if anybody truly believes that that's a nice, lovely sign of devotion to the Lord and this is what's happening, please come and see me after Mass. I've got a couple of bridges for sale. Realize that Christmas is the only holiday of the year where we have the name of God in it, and the only one we don't have time to write out. Oh, we don't have time for Christ, just put an X there. No, take the time to write out the name of the Lord. His name is worth saying. His name is worth writing out. So keep Christ in everything we do. And then finally, the most important thing of all, remembering to take time to pray every day. And I will stand here accusing myself as the biggest offender of this. Sometimes we're getting so busy with all the preparations for Christmas and everything, we forget to take time and pray. Pray every day. Whatever time it is, mark out a little time each day just to spend with the Lord. Perhaps coming before the Blessed Sacrament if you're out and about and want to come to the chapel, which is open every day until 8 o'clock. Or somewhere in your day and in your life, just spend a little time and pray and ask the Lord to help you remain close to him. If we do that, we'll discover we're keeping Christ in Advent, we're keeping him in Christmas, and he'll be with us not only throughout Christmas time, but through all the year. May Jesus Christ be praised, now and forever.